G'day and welcome to Daily Insights and Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. While I think about it, I'll start off with a bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, can you hit that subscribe button for me? If what I come out with makes sense to you, could you hit the thumbs up or thumbs down accordingly? And also, if you feel others that you know would benefit from these stories, please feel free to share it to whoever you think would appreciate it. That being said, that sounded quite it's like, right, that being said, we're going to, so it's that sort of energy I'm experiencing today. One of my bliss moments this evening was remembering that it's the simple things that can really lift our mood and really feel like we reclaim ourselves in a sense. I did something very simple. I just put some incense on and it felt like it was home. It was that really getting in touch with what makes me feel good. And I think with everything that's going off at the moment, that we've been so battered this year. It has been one of the most longest years I've known in my life, with everything that's been going off from a linear perspective, but equally it's like it's taken a long time, but it's like in a blink of a moment we're already in December. And it's a really weird thing. I find that we end up, because of everything that's going off, and it takes our attention, and we're looking at sort of like the different timelines and sort of getting prepared for that, and just that sort of almost like this energy of hurry up. And I know I've mentioned it before, that it's that sort of almost like a pressure. We're almost being pressurized into doing the internal work, to actually getting on board, waking up, just moving and forgetting to breathe. But also at the same time, forgetting to do the simple things that make sense. And it's in those simple things, like me putting the incense on today, that it sort of helps clear, it helps us sort of really come back into ourselves and feel comfortable. Well, it certainly makes me feel comfortable anyway, having a specific smell that comes in, and it makes me feel like I'm at home, and then I can feel more at home within my own body. And the other thing that sort of like has been, I've had a lot of things actually in the past 24 hours that have come to mind, but one of the other things was I woke up at a point today and had this, I noticed it took me a while to come round, and that made me start thinking about the process of us waking up and becoming aware. I was talking the other day about the full moon and taking those veils back, lifting up the curtains and becoming more aware of different things that are happening in the world, that the sort of the darker aspects that are going off, that has that fear agenda, that sort of stress agenda, the anxiety agenda. As we become more aware of it, that's sort of been classed as waking up. And I had that experience today on a very practical, physical level, that in waking up, I felt sort of discombobulated. It took me a while to come round. I was aware I was awake. I was aware that I wanted to do things, but it took a while to sort of come round, as it were, and feel like I'd actually truly woken up. And I have that sense, and I've known sort of as I've become more aware as the years gone on, about different aspects that have been going off in the world, and although they resonate and it makes sense to me and I can see it, there's still that underlying sense of this doesn't really make sense. And it's almost like when we do wake up from physical sleep, especially when we've had dreams or we've had a disturbed night or the sleep hasn't been long enough, it almost, as we wake up, it's almost like, I want to go back to sleep now. I haven't had enough time to process. I haven't had enough time to digest what I've just learnt, or feel that I haven't gained enough rest to be able to feel strong enough to move forward. So I think that that's some of sort of that energy we had the other night from the full moon, that has that real sense that things are getting lighter, and the curtains are coming back and we're seeing things more clearly. But at the same time, it's that resistance to actually acknowledge that these things are happening. And it's almost like when we first wake up at times, unless you're a person that sort of wakes up fully alert, as the day progresses, I've noticed even on those days where I've woken up fully alert, that there is still a time in the day where actually it's like, oh no, I haven't had enough rest, I haven't had enough time to process things. And it's like, as things are being opened up and the curtains are drawn back and the veils are drawn back, and we start to become more aware, it's like, hang on, I haven't had enough time to process this information, and yet you want me to respond to that, yet you want me to claim my sovereignty and walk in a particular way, and focus on creating this particular world space, when actually I don't feel like I got all that information. And it's almost can become sort of like a resenting feeling, having that being a bit resentful that we've been rudely woken up before we're ready to be so. And although we're okay at being awake, it's like, hang on, I haven't quite got there. And the other side of that sometimes as well is that sort of that rushing energy to wake up, to move forward, to make decisions. Yes, there is that element that we do need to start to focus on the type of world we would like, and linking into that frequency. But it's like looking back at the year, on one level it feels like it's taken forever. So on one level, that waking up process possibly feels like it's taking forever to achieve, but at the other moment it's like, oh my God, I've absorbed so much information within a short space of time. And then all of a sudden we're in December. So it's just that really crazy energy going off, and it's almost like we're hitting the brow of the hill, and we're on the top, but as we look down on the other side, we notice that there's almost like another mountain to climb. And it's that sort of that energy as well of okay, what more can I be shown? And then not wanting to think that, because inevitably if we start thinking that on that line, it's like, it's almost like something else does come in, and it's like, well, hang on, I haven't really absorbed everything else. So almost like a frenetic energy that sort of can create that internal resentment. So it's really learning how to create a space that we feel really comfortable in, whether that be just putting on some incense or putting music on, having a bath, just nurturing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to find the time and the space to really allow all of it to sink in, to allow all of it to settle through, so that we can go from a place of security and groundedness and anchoring, that as different things come in, we're not got a disabled base, so we can actually, we might be wobbled, but we're not going to fall over. And if we've got if we haven't had a chance for everything to filter through and give us a strong foundation, if as other things come in, we're more likely to sort of feel like we're going backwards. We never do, because we always we do move forward. So although it feels like we're sort of gone back into where we were, it does end up being for briefer duration. So but it's really giving ourselves permission to actually really nurture ourselves, support ourselves, and have an awareness and an understanding that this information is coming through too quickly, and that we do need that time and space just to process that, and to process that through meditation, through just having music on, laughing, meeting with people, anything that helps us solidify and feel secure within us and ground sort of into earth and ourselves. So I'm hoping this is making sense. I'm going to grab the crystal bag and we'll see which chakra. So if you all focus, oh, okay, we've had one come in and we're back to the heart. So the green aventurine, the other day we had the rose quartz, although the green aventurine seems to be the one that comes through. So really nurturing our heart space, really noticing that if we're beginning to feel fearful or overwhelmed, that's okay, that all these emotions are, there is no real negative emotions. I know we attribute a good or a bad aspect to emotions, but they're all informing us. So it's like reading a really good book, that you need to have plot twists, you need to have the darker aspects so that you can actually enjoy a brighter ending, as it were. So some books don't actually always end well, but it's the narrative, it's the richness, and it's the honesty that we do need those various aspects. We do need what are considered more negative emotions, or the shadow side, to actually balance. And it is about having balance. So really going into a heart space and actually looking and feeling into our fears, looking into the anger, looking into the pain and the hurt, but looking into what our role was within there as well, and part of why we create things. Because as I have said over the past couple of days, that when we become used to having our lives very full of stress or full of anxiety or full of fear, that's our norm, and that's what's normal to us, and that is what we will continue to look for, even though it's not something we necessarily think we want. But that's the disconnect. It's the disconnect between our thought and our feelings. And unless we actually truly feel into why these things exist, or why they were created, why we've put blocks there, why who it was that we trusted that hurt us and things like that, so that we can actually fully embrace all aspects of ourselves, so that we can wholly meet other people at the same time. So I'm not sure where this is coming from, so I never do. So I'm hoping this is making sense to somebody out there. If you could focus on the cards for me, we'll shuffle. And then split. Oh, 4 piles today. Dee. So these 3 cards to me, so we've got the garden, the lily, and a basket of flowers. So for me, this is very much about community, and sort of finding that community within, so that we can find a community without. Don't ask me, I have no idea where that came from, so we'll explore this a little bit further. So the garden tends to be about social gatherings. So I think as well, it's also really important when we feel into our hearts that if we are feeling overwhelmed, but we're expected to turn up, or we've said we're going to turn up for something, but we're feeling overwhelmed and feeling like we actually want to turn into a bit of a hermit and keep ourselves safe. It is actually acknowledging that that is okay, that as we have that more authentic relationship within ourselves in our heart space, that will translate into relationships on an external level. And if you're being authentic with other people, that you actually need your space to actually rest and absorb what's going off, that you need a minute, that the people around you will respect that. They might have initial, because they've got their own story going off, but it's in being honest with yourself so that you can be honest with other people, that people will understand and give you that freedom to actually be in the space you need to be. But within this as well, it's like, what else is coming through for me is that the more we actually sit in our heart and we look at the people that we're mixing with and the relationships that we've formed or are continuing to form, and noticing whether that is conducive to supporting our heart space or allowing us to explore sort of what are perceived as the more negative aspects in a manner that is actually supportive. It's really noticing those and actually giving ourselves permission to step away from the ones that are not loving and not supportive of our own growth. And that's okay, but we also don't always have to give an explanation. That if we really understand why we need to do something, then that should come across in just that, I'm not in a space to do this today, but I'm happy to meet you on another day. It's that real clarity. It's a clarity within yourself, clarity within your heart space, and that is therefore becomes more easy. Not completely, but it has that, it therefore sort of supports when you're speaking with other people, because it is coming from a joined up level, as I was talking about yesterday, that it's that under communication, the emotional communication that gets put out there, that if you actually sit within your heart space and really feel what you need, that actually that will translate when you say to someone, I can't do this today, I need some space so that I can sit with it. So it's very much around that. The next one is the lily. So the lily and the flowers with the garden has a couple of meanings. So some of it is legal and business. But in this, at the moment, what's really coming through strongly to me is health and well-being. And so that coupled with the green aventurine, it's our heart health. So it is our emotional health. And as I was saying earlier, as we're waking up, we're being bombarded by information. And that can take us on a painful journey sometimes, that we end up seeing things that we really don't want to acknowledge exists, and that gives that cognitive dissonance. But it's really feeling in and feeling into the authenticity and the truth of what we're hearing, but acknowledging how that is resonating for us, because a lot of it will remind us of previous stories that we've already lived through. And that could have the ability of getting us caught into sort of like a darker loop, as it were. And we could end up getting lost in that. So it's acknowledging and witnessing that that exists. But, and it's going back to really back into nurturing ourselves. So nurturing our heart space, doing the things that actually support us. So with the garden, it can actually literally mean going for a walk in nature, really connecting with the earth and the trees and just the beauty that's out there, or just having that music, but really creating an environment for yourself that is nurturing and supportive of the things that you need. And sometimes finding out too much information, as I say, is quite overwhelming. So you can actually stop seeing that. It's not denying that it exists. I'm not suggesting that, but actually acknowledging that you've taken on too much, you've taken on too much information, and that you need a moment to breathe through it, to actually maintain your mental and emotional health, because that is of paramount importance. Because if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not eating properly, if we're not having enough joy in our life, if we're not having enough free time, if we're not nurturing ourselves enough, that does have a negative impact on our immune system, and will end up making us prone to physical ailments and poor decision making. So if we're feeling quite pushed or rushed, we may end up agreeing to do something that actually we don't want to do, and actually will take us further away from looking after ourselves. And we could, if it's that it might be that somebody wants your support to go and help them do something, or work wants you to work a bit of extra overtime, or someone else sends you something else through a different medium, and you feel the need to actually listen to it there and then, but you may be hitting too much information overload already. So it's acknowledging that you really want to hear this information, but at the moment you need to take a break, that you need to turn your telly off, you need to stop looking at different platforms, and just take a moment and really sit and look at why you're feeling around that. What is it that's upsetting you around it? Is it resonating or reminiscent of something else that's already happened in your life? What does that bring up? How can you soothe yourself? How can you look after yourself to be able to continue walking forward in a healthy manner? So this, for me, the 3 cards with the Aventurine is very much just giving, really loving yourself, taking that unconditional love and actually bringing it within, and really acknowledging when something is too much to take on board, and saying, that's okay, I don't have to do it all today. There is no real time frame actually for us to become aware of everything. Everything will come to light whether we want it to or not, but we can actually manage the amount we take on board each day. And it might be that you want to just disconnect from reality for a little while, and I'm not suggesting to do that forever, because that is equally unhealthy, but it's about balance. And it is really having that balance within, and balance within our heart space, the recognition that the light and the dark coexist, that the shadow and the light coexist, that you can't really have one without the other. We can't have a shadow without the sun. It's not possible. If it's really dark, then there is no shadow. If it is just full on light, there is no shadow. You need to have both to be able to integrate fully within. And as we look after ourselves and really give ourselves permission to do what we need to do to feel okay, to connect with ourselves, really feel grounded so we're not wobbled by further information that comes in, then that's how we will meet other people at the same time. And it's back to that real authenticity, that real truth, because people will not necessarily know completely, but they will have a sense that if you're agreeing to do something that doesn't actually feel right for you, or you're going to end up resenting going somewhere because you're only doing it because you think that's what you meant to do, as opposed to really feeling into whether that is something that you would like to do, that other person or that group of people will really experience that underlying emotionality, but not necessarily understand the context. And more often than not, people will react to that underlying emotional context. And if you haven't got that synced up within yourself, if you're not aware that that exists, it will come out anyway. And as you're saying one thing, you're sending out something different underneath. And then that other individual or that group of people will react to the underneath bit. And you will sit there going, well, that makes no sense. That's not what I said. So it is really, my feel for today is very much about giving yourself permission to rest, to play, to do those things that nurture your soul and your heart. Because unfortunately, the information that's coming through will be a lot darker. But we need that light, we need that lightness of within, that unconditional love, and actually the benefit of having a good night's sleep, eating well, and having rest, having music on, having incense, anything that helps you feel comfortable within your own skin on a physical level will really help for you to actually end up feeling that connection with the emotional side, that emotionality, so that you feel comfortable within your emotions as well. So that when you do go back out and see people or communicate with people, it's from a place of wellness and having that overflowing support, internal support, so that as other things come in, you're not wobbled, that you're not hit over, you're not end up back in the fear, end up back in the stress, end up back in the anxiety, but actually can have it sift through more healthily so that you can go forward. I think that's all that needs to come out tonight. Yes, I'm on the evening. My day's gone all a little bit chaotic, but within that I'm trying to practice what I'm speaking about and really feeling into my needs at the same time. And I think that's how I've ended up noticing the energies a bit more today. So I'm going to just see what energy sound wants to come out this evening. So from my heart space to yours, thank you ever so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you would like some more information for yourself, I do individual storytellings. Don't hesitate to contact me. Looking forward to doing this again tomorrow, and hopefully I might manage it a bit earlier tomorrow. We'll just see. We'll see how the energies flow. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the time. I love you all. Take care. See you on the morrow.